Hello, everyone. My name is Yunus. I'm the founder and CEO of vFairs. And today we have Michael from walls.io here on the Epic Events podcast. Before I begin my conversation with Michael, please go ahead and subscribe to our podcast for updates on recent trends and insights on the event tech space. With that, let's get started. Michael, thank you so much for being here on the podcast.
Hi, Yunus. Thanks for having me, and a warm hello to the whole vFairs crowd out there.
Michael, tell us a bit about your journey and what led you to found walls.io, through just what led you to kind of be in this industry and, found this amazing product that you guys have built.
Sure, happy to do so. So maybe I will try to keep it as short as possible. Please let me know if I'm rambling too much. So I do already originally have a tech background. I used to be a software developer for, my whole professional career. And in 2010, I started to get interested in social media platforms in particular. Back then, Facebook was still pretty new, at least in Europe. I think we had less than 10,000 Facebook users in Austria when I started. And I found it super interesting that once Facebook especially launched their first API, it would allow every little small web developer like myself to build or start building new innovative applications on top of the social media platforms. And while that was not a business at all back then, because it was so new and nobody knew that social media would be a big thing, right? It was more like out of the love of trying something new. I found it very interesting. And luckily, that was the right bet, because out of these first experiments on top of social media platforms, I did first start a very small boutique software agency. So we were among the first, if not the first, in the German-speaking markets who would professionally build brand applications for companies on top of social media. And we did that business for a while, quite successfully. But I was always very clear, I don't want to do agency business for the rest of my life. For various reasons, I was, of course, excited to build a hopefully more scalable business, scalable product. And that is when we, out of the agency, created two SaaS, software as a service product ideas, which later became their own independent teams, independent companies. And the first one is a social media management tool. It's called SWOT.io. It's something like Buffer or Hootsuite. I guess many in your audience will know those tools. And the second product idea, of course, was walls.io, which became our UGC platform for event and audience engagement later on. So that's a short story how we got started with walls.io.
And what are the typical use cases? I know that a lot of our customers use walls.io. Walls.io is one of our top partners when it comes to integrations for the virtual platform in particular. But what are the typical use cases for something like walls.io?
Maybe let's define first, or give a broad overview what walls.io is doing. At the core, walls.io is a social media content aggregator. So that means for our customers, we are pulling in social media content from, it's like 16 platforms at the moment, for a certain hashtag, for a company or a brand name, whatever you can come up with, we collect it and provide you, the user, the online marketer, to utilize this content for your online marketing. So that's the abstract definition of what we are doing. And when we started with walls.io, we actually, our first and main use, the only use case back then, was events. It was really an event tool from the get-go. That has changed over the years. Nowadays, our product, the social media aggregator, can be used for other use cases as well, because so many disciplines in online marketing learned or understood that user-generated content is a powerful tool. It started with event marketing. It went on with hashtag campaigns and online marketing. Then we saw e-commerce coming in. And in recent years, we see employee engagement as another use case. So there's a broad range of use cases. But for us, for walls.io, event marketing was always the original use case. And even today, it's still the most important one for our company. And maybe a fun story how we got actually the idea to do walls.io, if I may tell you the story. It was actually a friend of mine who was doing a birthday party, a friend of another social media agency, and basically what we said, like, hey, let's build a rough prototype for this birthday party. There were only 100 or 200 attendees, but that's also when I still was coding myself. I built the prototype in a week. And we were running this social wall, as we started to call it, on a big screen, and it was a big success at this party. And that was when we really got the idea and said, like, hey, maybe there's a product in this idea. And that was the beginning.
Nice. And so you said, of course, events is one of the main use cases where Walls.io is being used. How do people contribute towards it? And again, is there a particular social media platform where you feel that you aggregate the most from? So is it X? Is it Facebook? Is it Instagram?
Yeah.
So what's your observations out there, given that you are aggregating so much of this data?
I mean, and I can give you to give our audience like a context in time. When I speak about the first prototype at this birthday party, that was more than 12 years ago, something like that. So the platforms back then were, of course, different ones. We had Facebook, we had Twitter, but there was no Instagram. There was no, I don't know, even YouTube was pretty small back then. So of course, it changes over time. But to answer your question, today, we still see the biggest volume in content. We definitely still see coming in from Twitter, now X, and Instagram. Instagram is a little bit ahead even, but we see also, in the last few years, we see LinkedIn picking up tremendously. So it's coming in close third. Facebook is losing relevance. So it's changing all the time, which I guess is one of the reasons I'm still excited about working in the social media marketing space, because there's always something new, a new platform to support, new APIs, new possibilities. So it keeps life interesting.
And Michael, just a kind of question from my side. See, when we do it for the event tech space, we integrate with payment providers. And again, I always thought it's going to be Stripe, PayPal, Authorize, and so forth. But as we work in different countries, you figured out, oh, by the way, there's just one payment provider really famous in, let's say, Middle East, one payment provider really famous in Australia. I don't know, in the social media industry, are there things beyond X, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram that I'm not aware of? Maybe you work with a customer in a different country and there's this other social media platform that you have to integrate with because it's just more famous over there.
So for us, for Walls.io, we are mostly operating in the Americas and in Europe. This is our core markets. And here it is pretty similar, to be honest. I think X is losing relevance in Europe while it's still very strong, but it's nuances. It's pretty similar. But there are markets where we currently can't play or decided not to play, and that is specifically Asia, where we have a very different breed of social media platforms, where you would exactly need to do what you just said. You would integrate completely different platforms, which especially in Asia is not that easy. There's a big language barrier. Sometimes they don't make it easy for third parties to build on top of the Asian platforms. This is few reasons why we currently really decided not to enter this playing field. But in our markets, it is relatively similar.
And so, Michael, what's the most surprising use case Walls.io has been used for? So again, for vFairs, people ask me what vFairs is used for, and it's like, of course, conferences, trade shows, job fairs, etc. Yeah. But sometimes people use us for a Halloween party, which I never thought people use us for. But
that's a
surprising thing that came for you.
That's a good example, the Halloween party. And again, I'm like really zooming in now on the event use case and leave aside our other use cases. When we started, the most obvious events, of course, were public-facing big events, trade shows, as you mentioned, conferences, because those events, of course, also tend to generate or pull in the most UGC, user-generated content. So that's a natural given. So I think one of the first surprises was when we, several years ago, started to see our customers using our product for corporate internal events. So that was not something that I planned as a CEO or anything. It was just something we suddenly saw more and more people using our product for. In the beginning, it sounded counterintuitive because for many internal corporate events, you actually don't want to have the content publicly on social media. So that was kind of counterintuitive. But still, customers were doing it, and we doubled down on that later on, built specific features for this internal event. So that was a surprise. But similar to what you just mentioned with the Halloween parties, I still remember the first time when we saw someone buy our product for a wedding. That was definitely a surprise. So I would not have expected that. So and also, maybe going back to the question you asked before, which platforms are most relevant? Of course, that is also connected to the type of event, right? So, for example, this wedding, they only did Instagram. That was the only thing they were interested in. Nowadays, business events are mostly happening on LinkedIn and so on. So there's, of course, also a variety in which platform is the most relevant, depending on the type.
Perfect. Michael, you mentioned, of course, you're zooming in on the events use case, but let's zoom out. What are other ways Walls.io is being used? And, which one is the most, like, second, third most famous for?
Yeah. So, I mean, to answer that, maybe we should also try to answer first the question, why does it make sense to facilitate or collect or display user-generated content for marketing purposes? And the answer, I think, is relatively simple. UGC usually means authentic messages from your customers, from your attendees, from your community. So to reach your marketing goals, it's much easier and much more efficient if it's not you, the brand, the company, crafting all the messages and all the posts. You do that anyway, but using what your actual customers, your actual attendees are posting about your event, about your product is much more powerful because it's believable, it's authentic. It's basically what nowadays is called influencer or creator marketing, but we did that more than 10 years ago. So that's the whole idea why using UGC makes sense in marketing. And now to answer your question, different use cases. That's the starting point. The online marketer can think about what do I want to reach and how can UGC help me. And events, we already discussed a little bit. E-commerce, for example. If you're building an e-commerce store and you have a product page or a checkout page and want to convince your potential customer how great your product is, why not integrate or embed a bar or a widget of 10 customer reviews from Instagram? That helps increasing the conversion rate for an e-commerce store. So that's a good reason why to use UGC in e-commerce. Another example, and this is something we see only since 2 or 3 years. And again, it was not us inventing this. We are basically going with the flow. We are building a good core product. And then very often we learn from our customers where to go next. And in the last case that was 2 or 3 years ago was when we saw our widget, and we collect the content, and it's a widget that you put on your website technically, right? And then suddenly, and that's good for us because we can see where our widget is popping up and we can learn from that. And suddenly we saw our widget popping up on career pages, job portals. Oh. And again, that was surprising first, but if you think about it, it makes sense. If you want to, recruiting is basically also just employer marketing or employee marketing, right? So it's another type of marketing. And if you want to convince someone interested in your job, you might just add a feed of social media posts that shows how the daily life at vFairs is looking like, authentically posted from the vFairs employees, for example. So that's another good reason why to use UGC in the context of employee marketing. So that's just a few examples.
Oh, that's amazing. What's coming up next for Walls.io? What are some of the new features, product releases that you're excited about?
Yeah, so I have to admit we were late to the AI game, but finally we are here. The reason why we were late, I mean, most of the AI hype of the last 2 years is, of course, about the generative AI, like creating content. And interestingly, I personally find that sometimes almost conflicting with the idea of authentic content, right? If we are all about authentic user content, so why should we let the AI create content? That doesn't mix well for me. That was why I was a little bit hesitant, but we have now found really great other areas where we can apply AI. In fact, we did a few weeks ago a silent launch. It's not announced yet. We are still fine-tuning, but we are working on a great feature that uses AI to set your social media wall, to autopilot. What do I mean by that? Of course, the downside of collecting UGC, user-generated content, the potential downside is that everyone can use your hashtag, right? Everyone can post hashtag vFairs. So that means most brands, that's their first objection when they talk to us. But how can we stay in control? And of course, over the years, we built a lot of tools for that. Moderation tools, spam filters, keyword blockers, all types of filters. But now we are bringing that to the next level with an AI engine that is way smarter than all the spam filters we had before, that you can teach which posts you want to actually display, or if you want to hide competitor posts, stuff like that. So it's an AI-based moderation tool that ideally will remove the burden of moderation from our users or our customers. That is one topic that I'm currently excited about a lot. That's like a big initiative that will go over the whole year, and we have a long list of ideas what we can do here. And of course, like I said before, it's always exciting for us to extend our products to new platforms. So again, this is also not announced yet, so I'm going to spill the beans for the vFairs community. What's coming in Q1? We are in the final stages of finishing our Blue Sky integration. So Blue Sky, for those who haven't heard, is a X or Twitter competitor or replacement sort of. So this is going to be exciting to see how that is adopted. That's only for the next few weeks in Q1. But of course, we have a lot more stuff we're working on.
Those are amazing updates, and I'm sure our customers who work with Walls.io would love that, especially the moderation feature.
I think yes,
all the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we are always aware that this is a big objection for potential customers. Do I have enough? We can't put it just display everything. So we want to curate or moderate, but we don't have time to do that. And I can completely relate to that, especially in the event business, in the event use case. We all know that the life of an event planner and event manager is hectic. So I can relate, or I can empathize that they don't want to have another thing to take care of during the event, and we are going to solve that now.
Michael, given that you also attend a lot of events, I've seen you, in many of them, both as speakers, exhibitor, attendee, and so forth. So I just want you to wear an attendee shoe for some time. Just answer some of the events related questions. So the question number one is that for any event that we all try to attend, the first thing we typically do is that we register for that particular event. And when you go to the registration form, the registration forms can be small, just, again, first name, last name, pay the price of the ticket and go on. Or they can be big because, they want to match you with the right people and so forth. Just as an attendee, which form what do you like more? Again, a small registration form, a long registration form?
That's a good question. I would say it's not easy to answer. I'm willing to give you a lot of information and spend some time filling it out, but I need to, as quickly as possible, see some value for that, like customization of the content that you present to me, or the networking feature as you briefly mentioned. So if there's value in that, I'm happy to fill out a longer form. But unfortunately, often I feel like I'm entering a lot of data, and then I get the same experience as if I would enter nothing, that I don't like so much.
Michael, assuming it's a long form, for the purpose of giving the benefit to attendees, whether it's better networking, etc. Assuming it's a long form, do you prefer one long form, or do you prefer a wizard-based form, which is, fill in some information here and then go to the next page?
Yeah. The latter, definitely. So, and you might also think about, or I could also imagine that it doesn't even have to be in one sequence, this wizard. Maybe you have a very small upfront sign-up form, and then at the right points in the user flow, later on, you ask for more details. So you make a sign up very easy, and then maybe the first time I click on networking, then comes a second flow where I give you more information about me. So that will make a lot of sense. I think also, it's not always easy to do. It depends again on the use case, but especially when you think about business events, I guess you can make my life or the attendees' life easier, maybe by pre-populating stuff, maybe by having me log in through LinkedIn. That could make sense. Things like that can make the process easier.
Sure. You go to the conference, what do you typically go for? Whether it's more for networking or whether it's more for the content networking, what do you prefer more?
I must say that also has changed over the years, but nowadays it's more the networking part, the community part that makes me go there more. Yeah, doesn't want to make the impression that the content doesn't matter, but I think that's the more important part. And that's especially true, I think, for in-person events. I think the most valuable, or often a very valuable part of in-person events is that serendipity to meet people without having planned for it before, between sessions, at the coffee break and stuff like that. So yes, that would be my answer.
For the networking piece, of course, you mentioned serendipity, which means that you already like those ad hoc conversations that happens. How much are you a fan of pre-scheduled meetings? You know exactly who you want to meet along with the reason. So is it more like, kind of MASH profiles that you are able to meet, or is it like ad hoc conversations that you prefer more?
Yeah, on both. It depends also. In some conferences, I like to keep it unplanned and just go with the flow and see what happens. But if it's an event where I have a clear business mission I want to solve, then I definitely like pre-planning and searching for relevant conversations beforehand. The only thing that I have to say, what makes it a bit hard sometimes, is that sometimes these matchmaking and networking platforms are quite overrun by people who are really like inviting everyone. I don't want to use the word spam, but yes, it's spamming in the end.
Michael, pick up 3 conferences that you love attending the most. So in a year, what are the 3 conferences that you plan to go, let's say, in 2021? Why?
All right. So I should look up my schedule. Actually, my goal was this year to go a little bit to reduce the number of conferences a little bit, because I felt like last autumn I overdid it. If I'm really honest, it was just too much. So the first one that comes to mind, and this is a conference that I attended for the first time last year. It's called Artist, Artist, like annual recurring revenue Artist. It's a German-based conference in Berlin. And I attended it for the first time last year. It's quite small, I think 200-300 attendees, but only founders and C-level, I think. And it was very high quality, both content and the connections. So I'm really looking forward to go to Berlin again this year. They also do like a side conferences, which is more focused on sales topics. So that also seems interesting. So that's Artist. Definitely looking forward to that. For us in the event tech space, we have been a repeat exhibitor and visitor of the Event Tech Live in London. I guess there is similar events in America, but for us it's just so much. We are based in Europe, in Vienna, and so for us then a trip to America is always so much more expensive and time intense. So this is why the ETL, I think, is still the best event tech meeting space in Europe, both for meeting new customers, but also for us in the event tech space to connect with partners like vFairs and Vosio are, of course, since a few years or many years. So that's the second one. And the third one is easy. It's basically my favorite, my love conference. And that's also where we already met. That's the SaaS Talk conference. It's in Dublin. It's in autumn, October, I think. And it's much bigger than the other two I mentioned. But it gets better every year. And I think the SaaS Talk team and their founder, Alex Tuma, they're doing a great job to go way beyond the content part and really offer a lot of community elements, which also I think differentiates them a lot from their big US competition. So that's my 3. As you can see, all are tech or software related. So that's maybe a bit boring for some of your listeners, but of course that's my business. So I need to do that.
Again, we have a lot of common events that like 2 out of the 3 that you mentioned are also my top 5 favorite ones. So absolutely agree with that list. One more last question on this topic. Are you someone who sign up early for these any conference, like not these 3 conferences, but like in general, are you a kind of an early sign up guy, or are you someone, who decides this in the last minute? Because I see different trends. People like to save money and sign up early and till the last moment don't know what will happen.
Yeah. That's also different. I mean, something like SaaS Talk, which I'm visiting since 5 or 6 years, I book immediately after the conference. I book for next year. I get the best price. I have it in my calendar. It's done. So the ones I'm a repeat customer or a repeat attendee, I tend to book very early. That's clear. But I leave some room for very short notice decisions. Like the Artist last year, I don't know, I booked probably 2 weeks before, something like that. So both. And once a conference is deemed worthy to be a repeat conference, then I'm switching to early booking.
Perfect. Just coming back to Walls.io, what's that one piece of advice you would give to event organizers looking to maximize engagement through user-generated content? So what are some of the best tips on that one?
I would say, it's 2 tips maybe, but 2 things that we see where a lot of potential is lost is start early and do it consistently across all your channels or all your communications. What I mean by that is don't just put up a social media widget or a social media display at the day of the event. That can work, especially for bigger popular events. But if you're worrying, maybe my event is not so huge, do I get enough content from the audience? Then the best way to solve this is to start early, start during the whole promotion life cycle of the event. Start collecting content soon. Get the hashtag out so that your early bookers, like we just talked about, can talk about you as early as possible. So start early. Don't make it a last-minute decision. It's possible, especially since our tool is, I would say, pretty easy to set up and quick and easy to do even on the same day of the event. But again, if you want to get the most out of it, start early. The second part of the tip, do it consistently across all your communications. Make sure that the social media widget, the social media wall, is not just on the screen at the event, but embed the widget on your event marketing website, on your registration form. Use the hashtag consistently in all your communication, things like that. Make flyers or QR codes to leave everywhere, things like that. So making sure that your audience can find and participate in the social media wall at as many points as possible.
Perfect. Michael, where can our audience find you? Like, what's the best way to connect with you if they want to follow you, if they want to learn a bit more about Walls.io?
Well, my primary social media platform is LinkedIn nowadays. So you can go to LinkedIn and just search for Walls.io or search for my name, Michael Kamleitner. I know that's not the easiest way to spell, but you will find me easily exactly there.
Michael, thank you so much for being on the podcast. And again, for everyone else, thank you for listening to us. Please go ahead and subscribe to our podcast for updates on recent trends and to follow tips from people like Michael and other leaders in the event tech space. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for being a great partner since years. Jonas, we really enjoy working with you, and to all the listeners and current and potential customers of vFairs, check out our product. It's super nicely integrated into vFairs. I'm sure you will like it. Thank you.
Thank you.